Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer in Colorado, and welcome to another one of my Leica talks, all things Leica. So today I'm going to talk about following up on last time we talked about the Leica IIIf. If you want to get into a Leica and you want to use different lenses, you have options. So this Leica is a Leica that has a bit of a cloudy viewfinder. And because of the cloudy viewfinder, instead of getting it fixed, I put a 15mm lens on the camera and I put a 15mm viewfinder on the camera, and now I have a camera that works great as an ultra wide and it doesn't need to be cleaned. I have another Leica 3 that I use with a 50 finder that I showed, and also I can use the actual finder that's built into the camera if I want it to be smaller. But if you find a good deal on a Leica 3, Leica 2 with a cloudy viewfinder, and I've seen them for as low as $100. I've paid $100 for a Leica 3C that had a cloudy viewfinder. It wasn't in pristine shape. Some of the lettering was a little bit scratchy. I don't buy cameras to put onto a shelf and stare at them for their unblemished look. I use cameras. And if you find a Leica and it's got a little bit of a problem, whether it's a cloudy viewfinder, whether it's a little bit worn, a little bit beat up, or a dent, it doesn't matter. If you want to be a photographer shooting Leica, pick that up, because this camera, I put a 15mm finder on, I put a 15mm lens. It's a Voigtländer 15mm f4.5, and it runs circles around a Nikon that I have. It's a Sigma made for Nikon 15mm that has all kinds of distortion. And this doesn't have distortion. The 15mm for the Leica is incredibly good because it doesn't have the distortion that you expect from a ultra wide. You know, you think with a 21 or a 24 you might get a little bit of distortion. Well, with a 15, the Nikon lens is almost like a trick lens. It looks like it's a trick shot. And this doesn't look like that. So now, if you ended up picking up a Barnack Leica and you have a 50 and you want a second lens, go with the off-brand lenses. The Voigtländer lenses are great build quality. You can get quality lenses. Look how small that 15 is. That's the beauty of Leica overall, is that they can make lenses that are much smaller so that you can carry a 15 in your pocket. Go look and see what a 15 looks like in a modern Canon or a Nikon. And I'm betting it's quite large. And this is basically the kind of setup that I'll use only for wide angle. If I'm going out and I take an M6 with a 28 or another Leica 3 with a 50, this might go in the case too, and now I've got two lenses with me, a 50 and a 15. My point is, I sometimes do want a choice, and a lot of times I don't. Most of the time I go out with just one single camera. I'll make the choice of taking the 28 to do street, or I'll take the choice of just taking the 15 and getting in close to something, or I'm going to go shoot something that I know I really want to get in there with a 15. But there are times when you do want two lenses, and if you get into a Leica and you don't want to spend a lot of money, you don't want to drop $3,000 on that M6 that they're asking. This kind of a camera setup gives you a lot of opportunity without the cost. Down the road you can get more viewfinders for more other lenses. You can get, they have a 25mm Voigtländer with a 25 finder. They have a 35 finder for a 35. They have 28 finders for a 28. Again, and dedicate that camera to what you want to have that work for. If you are a wide angle guy, Leicas aren't known in the Barnack series for having any finder other than the 50. And you're going to be disappointed because every time you pick it up, if you bought it with a 50mm lens, it only has a 50 on it, and the viewfinder doesn't have frame lines for anything wider. So even if you were to pick up a 28, you can't see what 28 looks like inside the finder on a Leica 3. But add a viewfinder, and suddenly you can. If you ever saw the famous photo of the sailor kissing the woman after World War II ended, he was in Times Square. It was photographed by Alfred Eisenstadt. If you look up Alfred's information, he was using a Leica III with a 50mm finder. A lot of the photographers who started out when Leica first came out would put finders on them because it made it so that you got this big bright viewfinder instead of the small squinty finder that came with the camera. Even the guys using 50s, like I showed last time, you could put a finder on there just for the 50, just so you can have it quick and bright. There's something to that. So look for deals. If you find cameras that are a little bit beat up, good, that's fine. That's a negotiation price. That's a point that you can use to get a price in your benefit. If you find a cloudy viewfinder, you might say, I want to shoot 50, I don't want that camera. I want to get one that has a clear viewfinder because I want to shoot 50. You could always go get it clean, lubed, and adjusted, and that service would clean that. The other thing is to watch for is make sure you can see the rangefinder. Make sure you can see the focus. If you're unable to see through a cloudy viewfinder, how are you going to focus at 50? Now with a 15, pretty much if I set it at 4 feet, everything is in focus. I know this camera, because a 15 is so wide, it's really difficult to get anything out of focus. And as long as you're set at 4 feet or further, everything is in focus. And so this camera, I don't really need to use that finder for a rangefinder to check focus. Now, I've also been a proponent that if you're shooting a Leica, you want good focus. What's the point of making photographs with a Leica if you're not going to be worried about focus? That's the point of their optics. And even the Voigtländer optics are great optics, but it's like, what's the point of them if you're not going to find focus then? So you do need a finder with the ability to see focus, unless you're using that 15. Ultra wides get away from the need for critical focus at some point, but if I'm buying one of these, I'm only using it with a cloudy viewfinder with that kind of an ultra wide. If you want to work with a camera with a 50, get one where you can see the finder, get one where you can see the rangefinder patch. There's nothing more frustrating than taking a picture of somebody and as you're focusing, you have no idea, you can't see anything. If it's dim, it's difficult when you're in a real world situation like a pub and you're going, hey, let me get your picture, and you're looking there, you're going, I can't see anything. It doesn't show me what's in focus. And you need to know what's in focus, especially when you're using 35, a 50, anything longer. This camera is great for me for a little wide angle camera that I can keep that 15 on, but that's all it's good for. Anything else, I'll take a camera with a clear viewfinder, but whatever you find, know that you have choices. Finders make even cameras with clear viewfinders easier and better, a little bigger. Without the finder, it can fit in your pocket. With the finder, it really can't. But again, if you're carrying a little bag, that's the kind of thing you can take 2 cameras, put them both inside that bag, and you're good to go with a very small kit. And now you've got 2 lens choices. That's the way I like to go. All right, that's today's Leica Talk. Hey, if you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button, and I'll be back. We'll talk more Leica. Hey, as always, here's the good light.